let's start the meeting. Let's stand for the
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I'll meeting to order. Would you take a roll call?
Bush.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Eisner. Here. Metka.
Here.
Gelding. Sullivan.
Here.
Hebron. Here.
All right. So we're going to start off with some recognitions. Got a lot of good things going on in Pointer Nation lately, so there's some great recognitions here. The first one,
Hey, just for everyone who's paying attention, Mr. Wainwright is recovering from surgery, and he is online from home,
yes,
fully participating.
yes,
So you are assisting in
that is
facilitating
true.
the meeting. So thank you for doing that.
Yep. So first one we have here is National FFA or FBLA qualifiers. Sorry, FBLA qualifiers. So at the beginning or end of March here, we had our FBLA go to Madison this year, and there they competed. From there, we had the following members place first through third in their events at the Regional Leadership Conference held in February. So there it was Mac Bussert in Intro to Business Procedures, Bobby Albright, Intro to Financial Math. The broadcast journalism team, Cole Farrell, Hayden Marr, and Caleb Wursel. Abel Logue in advertising, Griffin Alba and business calculations. Owen Ward in securities and investments. Hayden Bakken, political science. Kelsey Toy, job interview. Kendall Kilpatrick in securities and investments. The team of Jada Sudmeyer and Kennedy Smith, hospitality and event management. Olivia Pode in cybersecurity. The team of Juliana Cool, Graceland Foster, and Willa Ward in intro to event planning. The intro to event planning team of Juliana Cool, Willa Ward, and Graceland Foster have earned a spot at the National Leadership Conference in Chicago in June with their fourth place win at the State Leadership Conference. So they are traveling there. And again, there's a bunch of other ones here. Matthew Gannon and Cooper Schaff and Marissa Painter attended this as member delegates for the FBLA Legacy Academy. So a lot of good things going on with the Future Business Leaders of America. Really good turnout. Obviously some success with people going on to Chicago this summer. So they weren't able to join us tonight with some different things going on, but I think they all deserve a nice round of applause. Our second one is the State Skills USA competition. Mr. Carey, back there now, sorry, he was up here. Mr. Carey is here to join us, so I'll let him speak.
We competed in the Skills USA like we do every year. We did not last year when it was virtual. I thought it would be difficult to do the skills virtually, so we opted out last year. So this is our first year back, and I didn't actually expect the numbers to be so high to bring there. But 26 kids there. We ended up with 3 champions that are going to go on to Atlanta, the Nationals on June 20th. So today I was in the process of already starting fundraising so that we can get them there. The families do intend to go. So the 2 categories that they won was t-shirt design, Kelsey Toy, which there's her board, and there's a prototype of the t-shirt, not the actual one that she did to win the state competition, which is a thank you to the school board and stuff that allows me the technology that you can see over there. We did the Holiday Games t-shirt this year, 2 for the school and stuff, and we're able to actually do it cheaper for the school now. So when Staber does it for the fundraiser, they actually get to keep more money for their fundraiser and stuff like that. So we're really trying to use that technology. I brought some laser engraving stuff so you guys can see stuff that we do with the laser engraver as well. And then the other competition that we won was TV production. And I did forward an email on to Mr. Austin. So we'll just show that to give an idea. Because most people ask me, right, well, what is Skills USA? And I try to explain, I said, well, you think of FFA, just not ag related. It's going to be just industry. And then we still have job demonstration skills and we have all the leadership stuff as well. But this will give you at least a small idea of what's in there. So this is what won the state competition.
I'm Madison Hine, here at the Alliant Energy Center. At this conference, Skills USA is preparing for leadership in the world of work.
I'm Todd Perry, and I'm the Middle Point Skills USA advisor. Middle Point Skills USA chapter has 26 individuals competing here at Skills USA State, including 4 Team Engineering Challenge.
My name is Carson Cole and I'm competing in team engineering. I like Skills USA because it allows me to meet new people and just complete events like team problem solving.
My name is Bo Hansen, and I'm competing in woodworking display. I like Skills because Skills is a big opportunity for a lot of kids to kind of figure out what they want to do in the future.
If you want to learn more about Skills USA, visit skillsusa.org.
So that's just it. I just want to congratulate all the kids for doing it. Everybody placed and did quite well in the thing, in the actual event. There's still a few of them that we haven't figured out the place that's on. We do know anybody that placed in the top 3. Not necessarily. I do know the team, one of the team problem solving, there's 65 teams in that, and they got called back, so which made them for sure in the top 10. And then we believe they placed. Versus congratulate up Skills USA.
Up next, we have the state forensics, which was held last week on Friday. So I have Ms. Staver, Ms. McCoy, and Mr. Smith, who are our advisors for the group. I'll invite them to come forward and talk somewhere in there so they can hear you on the.
Great. You want to come here?
Like right here.
So the forensics team were super, well, yeah, Mr. Smith and Mrs. McCoy and I were super proud of these kids. We had 36 members this year. And then out of those 36 kids, we had 22 entries. So there were 3 groups that had like 5 or 4 kids in it. And then the rest are all individual competitors. Super proud of these kids just because it's been so weird the last 2 years. Last year we were all virtual. This year we were half virtual, in person. It just was strange, but still in the end, I loved it. I'm super proud of these kids. Libby Dunn's one of our old members sitting over there. She did really well. So when we went to state, we just went Friday night, and we had 10 of our 22 entries were gold, Critics' Choice, and 6 were silver, so 24. And then the other ones I felt like got ripped off. So whenever something's judged, it's subjective. So of course I think we're good. But Jasmine Cool, I do want to say, they have a competition, not a competition, but an honor they give if kids they compete 4 years and get a 25. But because of COVID, the last 2 years, they've made like an exception if you were 3. And so Jasmine Cole did get that, which is a huge honor. I don't think people realize it. There's literally over 4,200 students that compete. And only out of those over 4,000 kids, 24 kids were able to say that, and Jasmine's one of them. So, that's pretty impressive for us. And there's no classification. It's all big school, small school. That's everyone. So,
this season, we have maybe 5 freshmen that got a goal at state. So they're in that position where they could, have to watch them and kind of see where they go from there.
One thing that I'm super proud of, I don't know, Mr. Smith and Mrs. McCoy can verify it, but I love hearing when I go to schools, people are like, your team's huge. You're a little school. How is your team so big? I'm like, they love it. And we struggle because right now, we were going skills, mock trial, everything's all at one time, FBLA. And we have kids in everything. And then they're all athletes or in band or, so it's like, we're just trying to pull these poor babies going everywhere. And so many coaches are like, I don't know how you guys do it. How do you have so many kids? And my thing that I love is I'll hear kids say, it's so fun. You know, both my children are athletes, and I'll say, what was your favorite thing? And they'll both say, oh my God, Mom, forensics was so fun. So
I think that speaks to the cooperation among the staff. And like, we're very blessed that our coaching staff, our other clubs, we all work together and really give.
oh, we did at one point last week, Mr. Carey and Mr. Robinson, we were all in one room saying, all right, we got 3 competitions going in one day. His dad will pick her up, bring her, where are you gonna? And I'm like, all right, text me when you get there. I'll tell her I'll find her in the parking lot. So, I mean, so that's a cool thing about our school is that we work together, but our kids are super competitive and very successful, and they're very well-rounded. So, Libby, you got anything? You love it?
I love it. It's so fun.
I talk
Yeah.
her into it too. She's like, what?
I don't know
Yes.
why. I mean, the kids do love it. You guys all love it. I don't know why.
My friend came up to me and was like, Mr. Smith says we should do this play. I was like, okay. But it ended up being super amazing.
Yeah. So we're very, very proud of the kids, and hopefully the next year coming, it'll be a little more normal. We won't have to do the virtual,
We'll be back in Madison for a state.
yeah, but Mineral Point did really well. So
Congratulations. Up next, we have 2 students who are named to the high school WSMA State Honors Project, and they are both here with us, Libby Dunn and Elliot Webb. Great honor, a lot of hard work. I'm going to let you 2 kind of talk a little bit about what goes into that. If you're okay with that, yes, no? I put you on the spot.
Well, WSMA is the Wisconsin School Music Association. So a bunch of people audition. There's like the requirements, you play a solo and a little exercise and scales. And they pick the best to go play in this band that has a camp over the summer, and then we perform in the fall. And to get the best, composers to work with, and it's a great experience.
Awesome. Awesome. Congratulations to both of you 2. You worked very hard for that, so very impressive. And finally, I don't think either one of them is here, but I will recognize them. Miss Cindy Notham, our high school math teacher, and Miss Callie Pierce, our senior valedictorian, both have earned the Herb Cole scholarships. This past week they were announced, so pretty great honor for both of them. With the education one, the school gets a little bit of money. Miss Notham gets to do a project with that money. And then with Callie, she gets a scholarship for school later on too. So pretty awesome celebration for us for those 2 to win that award. So you want to give them a round of applause? And I will bring back up Zoom and I will turn it over to you, Doctor.
I have a question for
Yeah.
Mr. Carey before we move on. On the Skills USA contest, I was looking at the list you provided, and it is a huge range of activities from engineering to welding sculptures to criminal justice to, we're talking very.
This is only 2.5% of the act.
Do you individually support that, or do you have members of the community or people who maybe have the skill set and then come in and support the team?
Right, so we've won woodworking display multiple times, and like that, I would argue that. Anyway, so that's my forte, right? I'm a contractor and a woodworker, so obviously I can help the kids in that facet, right? We do cosmetology too. I'm
Not your jam?
Right, not my jam, right? So when they do that and they choose that, we have our meeting, we have a Skills USA RTI 3-week thing where we make sure our resumes are ready, anything else. Nate Chambers, I get a hold of, and we got Big Mac doing the masonry. So he helps them and they bring in, and then he works in my shop, after school and stuff, and does what I know on the mason, but I can only do so much. Ellery got her CNA through my Gen Tech class. Had some people working on their CDL that they got there. Well, those are things that I can do within the classroom, but I'm not a nurse to be able to help them actually get it, other than provide them material, time, and stuff. But yes, I'm constantly reaching out to pros in the community when they're doing something that I can't help. You know, Ottaways helps with the crime scene investigation a little bit here. Definitely need some, you know, we're a one-man band compared to, you know, you go to another school and there's 7 tech ed. One's just the metals, one's just the engineering, one's just the woods. And I tell them, I'm like, get me, you know?
Well, let me butt in,
Yeah.
as I always do. So the kids that won the media and production, they came in, they're like, Stever. So first of all, they forgot the Mac. We have like one iMac little computer in the bag, and they couldn't get back in. And I'm like, why didn't you call me? I would have opened the school, I would have gotten it. Anyway, so these 2 girls who won that whole thing, they walked in with their little Chromebook, and they said, Stever, it's so embarrassing. These big schools are coming in with like DJ equipment, basically. They got like double monitors, all this, and they're like, we won. I'm like, that just shows you. They're like, we pulled out, and then I guess the judges pulled them over, and the kids started to tell them about what they're doing, live streaming games and all the things, and they just could not believe that a small school that we were doing the things that we were doing. So
Yeah,
that was
and again,
pretty
like
cool.
Bo Hansen couldn't come up because he had a baseball game in Boscoville. So we set up his table up there for him on Tuesday night. He's got to get clearance from the judges that Tuesday night he can come late, which is a good thing because then he had to pick up Mac to come up there.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
we're constantly playing that game. You know, and then we have the, you know, things like, well, Lucas did the job demonstration, job interview, you know, and we have a math contest, stuff like that as well. So I'm good at helping them with the woodworkings, you know, stuff like that, where I'm really good on the construction. But the kids look at, if you see in some of those videos, they like to do the woodworking display and they're afraid to do construction ones where you're there for 6 hours. And you're building. This year was kind of like a doghouse. They had to build in 6 hours, all those kind of things. Make a wrong cut and you're in trouble. Kind of a scenario. Yeah, I reach out to anybody that can, but now I'm reaching out to, today I reached out to WKOW and Channel 3000, trying to get sponsorships, TV productions and stuff like that. I'm going to reach out to RBS and Sports Worlds on the t-shirt design and trying to figure out ways to fund them because I promised them that to get to nationals, they won't have to. We're not going to go because I can't. Skills USA is going to find a way to get them there.
Thank you.
Okay, nice. Great. All right, next is approval of the minutes. So we've got our mini meeting from Joint Operations Finance and Personnel that was on the 17th. And then we have the regular March 14th meeting. So take a motion to approve them together or separately.
I'll make a motion to approve them together.
Second. So then Janetka, any other comments or discussion on this? Okay, Angie called the question.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Seaver, yes. Bush,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Netka,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, next is communications. We'll start with any board communications received. Around the horn, Sarah, you want to start?
Didn't receive anything that everybody else also did, received. So, those I think would be best brought up.
I have very quiet from board communications. I didn't receive anything either.
Okay. I had a few concerns about increasing the pay for support staff, and wanted to make sure that I had a concern that wanted to make sure that these kids that are going to Skills USA are able to go. I said, I'll see what I can do. So we can follow up later, Mr. Carey and whoever, but those are the emails I got.
Nothing special. I'd say I have a couple from today. I have not read them. I haven't had time. So other than that, I haven't got nothing more month. Nothing that we all did.
All right, next would be citizen communications. Did anyone see that video? All right, Cyrella wedding.
Correct.
Okay. You got 3 minutes if you just want to state your name and your residence.
I'm Lorelei from Middle Point, Wisconsin. Live out on a farm. My children graduated from here. And so there's a lot of crazy things going on. And I want to know if this school has something about litter boxes in school. Is that true? There's a lot of schools have been having something like this going on. So I just want to know if that's true or not. There's also 3 books that are very evil in our school districts around. I don't know what the names of them are, but they are evil. And I just want to make sure our school don't have that stuff. Because this has always been a very good school. And Plum was in here and Fry Miller and stuff when I was here. A very nice school. I just like to keep it that way. I can keep it that way.
Amen. Mr. Rossi, do you briefly, can you clarify for the board what litter boxes in school?
There is a term out there, maybe you've seen it on the news, called furries. So people identifying as either a dog or a cat. We do not have, I don't have any talk about that here. I have seen it on the news and some other things where schools are dealing with, they want parents would like policies around this and so on. Again, if you look on the news, you'll see something about it, but I don't think it's went anywhere with any schools.
Well, it's in schools around the area.
Okay. Again, I have not been in direct contact with anybody about it. I have not had anybody approach me about it.
Okay. So you're aware of what she's talking about and
I am aware.
And it's on your radar. Okay.
It is.
And you'll let us know if it's
Yes.
an issue here.
Yes, I would.
Okay. Great. Anyone else?
Yep. One person online.
Okay.
Alan,
Looks like Alan
if you can unmute yourself, that way we can hear you, and then just state your name and place of residence. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
City.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Alan Schrank, 325 Doty Street, Mineral Point. I just wanted to address the board about public comment. I feel that the public comment, it was talked about this last meeting of limiting it to agenda items and limiting the public comment. I feel that it's very important. I know that one of the issues I had brought up was very beneficial, I think, to the public. I also had a lot of teachers and staff and community members reach out to me, and that was regarding the ongoing parking and egress issues with traffic in and out of the lower elementary school parking lot, and then also the parking that was on Catherine Street, which has been addressed by additional signage. Still need to do a little bit of work probably with the lower lot with some signage, and then over on Front Street, adding in that afternoon parking restriction on the north side of Front Street. It is posted for the morning, but I felt that the public comment period, I'd like to see that open to everybody to be able to address the board, being that I had positive interactions with the board. The other issue I wanted to bring up to the board was I saw there's a new truck that's been purchased for the district that's parked over on the north side of the parking lot. I was wondering if there's some area for even the vans or any of that equipment, those V-plows, that expensive equipment that's sitting outside in the weather and elements. I think if we spent the money, we should maintain it, and we should keep that equipment somewhere inside so it's out of the weather elements, whether it be the winter elements or the heat in the summer. So thank you, everybody, and I hope that you guys continue to have the public comment period for people to be able to address the board.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan.
I don't see anybody else on there.
Okay. We can follow up on that vehicle protection concern.
Yeah.
Offline.
Yeah.
Okay. Next on the agenda is items for information and discussion. First thing is election results. Is this something you're going to go over, or have Mitch go over online?
Mitch, I believe, will be going over this stuff.
All right.
I don't have anything for this.
So the canvassing of the votes took place today. They counted all of the votes from all of the townships and the cities and all of the wards. There was a change in and that's why it's listed as unofficial. When I get the phone calls, there were some votes that were added in for the city of Mineral Point. One of the wards was left off, but it did not change the result of the election. Will Harris and Christy Johnston received the majority of the votes. All four candidates picked up more votes based on the unofficial spreadsheet that I had put together on election night. But the two candidates with the most votes that night remain the two candidates with the most votes. So Will Harris and Christy Johnston will be joining the school board at the end of the month.
And we will have a meeting on April 25th to have them
swear in the two new board members. So there'll be a very brief meeting that night.
Okay, anything else on that, Mitch?
I have nothing.
Okay. Well, hey, I just want to take the moment to thank Gary and Sarah for serving on the board. You served full term, probably one of the most trying periods the school board has been through in a while. Your perspective was extremely helpful in helping us sort through that. So appreciate it.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, please.
I do want to say something direct. There's been a lot of comments, made towards school board members the last 2 years. And not good, some good. And this guy sitting to the right of me here, I remember when he ran for school board quite a few years ago. And I said to somebody, I don't remember who it was, I said, I really don't think he'd be a good person for school board, because that time I had the wrong opinion of him. And now that I've sat on school board with him for 2.5 years, it takes me back to 1995 when we were in high school together playing cards in the very back room of the bedroom playing euchre. And he really is the same person he was back then. I want to thank him and say I was sorry for having that opinion of him, but we were definitely here for the kids. I appreciate your respect, you man.
I do want to add, I think you guys get reached out to by a different section of the community than a lot of us do. And I encourage that, that section to continue to reach out to all of us. I stay involved. I think you're both heavily invested at this point. You're not going away. I'm not asking you to continue to take our calls for us, but just make sure you pass those people on to the board. Let them know that all of us are ready to listen to their concerns, and we're all very open to everybody's opinion. But I think we do still suffer from a little bit of, I'm going to call who votes like me. And now there may be some people struggling to find people who they believe vote like them. And I think it's just important that you guys let those people know that we're all here to listen and respect their opinions. And I certainly hope a year from now, when the seat opens up, that you'll put your name back on the list.
Thanks for your time, Sarah. I appreciate you.
I just want to say right quick, I want to thank y'all. I kind of came in, and I know certainly I heard from Alan and other people that they had no idea who I was until I showed up at the meeting to put my hat in the ring. So I really appreciate your guys' time. I certainly have enough to do without doing it, and I would have done the job, had I been elected, but I appreciate the time you guys have given me, and been fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next is an update on the open third grade position. Mr. Wainwright?
I reached out to Mr. Renwick, which is typical especially at the elementary level. if a staff person leaves to take another position or retires, a lot of times there'll be the ask internally if there's someone that wants to move to a different grade level and different classroom. I reached out to Mr. Renwick. At this point in time, there has been no interest in any internal shifting. And while all of this was going on, we had a staff member reach out and inform us that some families had indicated they were going to be moving their students or potentially moving their students out of the district at the end of the year, which is kind of causing us to pause a little bit on whether or not we'll post that position externally. It may be that and while not the greatest of situations to move staff around, it may make the most financial sense to maintain the same level of classroom sizes, but be able to reduce a section at another grade level and move somebody into the third grade classroom where there would be still the need for 3 teachers. So currently we will not be posting that externally as we investigate those classroom numbers a little bit further.
I appreciate your fiscally minded approach to that situation, given that we know we're going to have some really tough conversations about budget. So thank you for keeping that on the forefront instead of just rolling forward.
You're welcome.
It's just to plan for follow-up. Are you planning on revisiting this at the next regular meeting, or are you thinking we would have a personnel committee meeting to dive deeper into the pros and cons of posting the position, or what are your thoughts on that?
I would like to get maybe some more firm guidance on those numbers in one of those lower grade levels, and maybe even reach out to those families to double check if that is indeed their plans. Again, there's open enrollment opportunities. There's families that may move into the district that might change that. While I want the best candidate, that doesn't mean we can't find a great person. If all of a sudden we get an influx of students at a particular grade level that would warrant us looking at a third section, but we would need to see a significant increase right now based on the numbers that were shared out. So I would say probably a review at the May board meeting as to kind of what we know at that point in time.
Okay, thanks. Just logistics here. I think you can pin his video.
Back over.
You can pin his video so
He was over there.
so that it shows up when he talks.
Like that? You want a double?
Yeah, that's great.
That's great.
All right.
Thank you.
Can I hide the participants?
You can now, yeah.
You don't need to. Okay.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
Sure, that's where.
All right, next is budget comparison.
So in your board packets, as we do every month, we compare budgetarily where we were a year ago. And at this point in time, we had spent out about 59% of the budget. This year, at the end of the March budget, we are actually at 64%. And the reason for the jump prior to the district going on spring break, I do this every year. And this year, spring break was a little bit earlier. Well, I shouldn't say earlier, but I think staff members understood the email a little bit more. I ask if there is something that they know they need for the remainder of the school year to purchase it now, even though they might not need it till the end of April or the start of May. If they know it's an item that they had budgeted for and they need it but haven't ordered it, to take care of that, and I'd ask them to do that by April 1st. So I'm not surprised that there's a little bit more of a jump in what our budgets expenditures had been at this point in time through March, because staff members were submitting a lot of POs to get the equipment in. This gives Marsh and I and the building principals an opportunity to look at, okay, what budget monies have not been spent? Are there things that we can look at doing with any additional funds prior to the end of the school year? And sometimes even look at pre-purchasing some items, so if we know in the fall of the year, we have a request for something, if there's budget monies available now, we would certainly look at some of those kind of opportunities and get that material, get curriculum materials in-house if that's what it is, or some of those things. So I would venture that is the reason why that number is a little bit higher this time around in March, because of trying to get that purchase order spent out for the fourth quarter.
You don't anticipate that we'll be over budget?
I do not. Any
questions, comments about that? Okay, thank you. All right. Next, Mr. Austin is going to talk about the book discussion.
Yeah. So earlier this year, I had asked you guys to kind of join in with us, read The Twin Thieves, which is fear of failure, the fear of judgment, just so we could have some brief conversations around what that means, how we continue to grow, how we mentally, how we continue to grow, how we help challenge kids to continue to grow, become better leaders. We had a discussion last week with some community members. It was very nice. It was an hour long. Just kind of talked about where do we go from here, what they took away from the book. I think one of the big takeaways, or one of the big things I always try to do is read a book like this, try to take one thing away from it and use it in your daily life. I actually really enjoyed this book a lot. I hope you did too, as board members. I hope you had a chance to read it and really dive into it. But I think there were some really good conversations from our small groups. We did it over a 6-week period, 25 pages we read. And then during PLC time, we took what was supposed to be about a 25, 30-minute discussion, turned into usually about an hour discussion. But I heard a lot of good things. And actually, we had a student last week make the comment that they've seen changes in our staff as we read this book, because you kind of get that refresher and that energy boost that you need moving forward. Big takeaways, I really like the be a buffalo, not a cow, run towards the storm. I think in education, I think we need to be reminded of that at times. There's always big things coming up, and we have a way to take them on, but we got to make sure that we want to go towards it, which I think that, our media program, our skills, our FFA, FBLA, they've done a really good job of preparing kids to do that. Watering the bamboo is another one. I think we have to continue to grow here. We have to put energy and effort into things that we know are going to pay off in the long haul. Mr. Leonard was here, he had to go, but he was talking about our leadership class that goes along with that. They read this book too. So part of this, we were fortunate to get the grant for the community. We were one of 4, correct? One of 4 school districts to get that grant a second time. And it allowed us to purchase 160 books, which is awesome because we put them into kids' hands, we put them into community hands, staff members' hands. And I think it really, like I said, there was a lot of good discussions from it. Each discussion, and there's 2 of them sitting behind you who came tonight that are students, to be in the discussion tonight. And I applaud them because that's a big step, because it's not their peers, it's adults that they don't really know that they're coming up and talking with. And they're sharing their story and how that this has changed their mind frame and mindset to move forward. So I will wrap it up, but I think that this is something that we're looking forward to, how we can continue to grow this. We have some common language that we're trying to get the students to kind of think about how they would like to see it worded over the next couple of weeks, and we're going to push out in a survey. But I think it's good for us to put our time and energy into these students in a different aspect with mental health. We're going to see the payoff. We're already seeing the payoff, I can tell you that. So the leadership class has really exploded. Our clubs and stuff, they're doing phenomenal. I think a lot of this pulls back into students' leadership amongst their peers. So I hope you got a chance to read it. If you haven't, I understand, but pick it up some night. It's a really good book, really quick read. And like I said, we want to continue to move forward with some of this stuff. So if there's other questions you have or not from me. But I know a couple of you were able to make it to the just short discussion here, and I appreciate that too. Thank you for doing that. But I hope we continue to work on this skill set moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll go to action items. First is naming the Mineral Point baseball field.
I've asked Ms. Dahl to address the school board in this agenda item.
Also, as far as leadership, we were named the Small Conference Sportsmanship Award winners. And I think that leadership really ties into that too, especially with our students and our. Okay, here we go.
You deserve a lot of credit for that.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Great award.
Bullpen Club and the Mineral Point High School Athletic Department would like to make a request in naming the baseball field, Ted Evans Field. Head coach baseball for 23 years. His team compiled 250 plus wins, 2 conference championships, 6 regional championships, 1 sectional runner-up, and 1 sectional championship, and 1 state appearance. He was a coach in the 1987 All-Star Classic, which was played at Milwaukee County Stadium. That takes you back a few years, right? Coach Evans was also selected to the Wisconsin Baseball Coaches Association Hall of Fame in 1998. Mr. Evans was a longtime teacher coach for Mineral Point High School, starting in 1972 before becoming the high school principal. He retired at the end of the 2010-2011 school year. He is currently the SWAL Conference Commissioner and continues to be active with our school and community. It also started the Mineral Point Alumni Foundation in 1992. The fundraising efforts of this foundation made it possible to offer senior scholarships, improve our athletic facilities, and support other school programs. If you have not driven by the baseball field lately, please take time to do so. The improvements made over the last 2 years are amazing. Over 130,000 of improvements have been made. New scoreboard, chain link outfield fencing, new pitcher's mound, new backstop netting, and concrete pads for the bleachers and dugouts, as well as a concession stand, just to name a few of the current improvements. A full list of improvements are available that I can share with the board if necessary. In addition to all these improvements, there are many volunteers who put in countless hours working on improving the baseball field. I would like to thank all of the volunteers, especially Mike McVeigh. Mike has spent a lot of time not only coordinating the improvements, but also volunteering many hours to improve the baseball field and communicating with myself, Roger Paulskill, and also Mr. Wainwright. He also needs to go out to all of our local businesses who have made donations for our field. Bullpen Club and the Mineral Point High School Athletic Department appreciates the board's consideration of naming the baseball field Ted Evans Field. Thank you.
Okay, so Mitch, I'm assuming you're looking for a motion to name the baseball field Ted Evans Field as proposed?
Yes, exactly. And I do support that. I know Ted has been instrumental in this, and the Gridiron Club, sorry, the Bullpen Club is the ones that really brought this forward. So I do support this as well.
Any clarifying questions before?
I do want to clarify just for everybody listening. The $130,000 worth of improvements were donated by the Bullpen.
Yes.
So nobody thinks we found $100 grand, right?
This was
Decided to
not-
put it in.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
just so we can clarify that.
Good point.
Jeffrey.
I'll make the motion to name it.
I'll second.
All right. Sullivan, Seaver. Any other comments, questions?
No, I just wanted to say, like, I'm glad Andy said it, because I was actually at the game a week ago Friday night, and it was last year. The improvements from last year to this year, it really is a nice ball field. I know they pretty much funded all of it. So anybody concerned as to where the money's coming from, that's where it's coming from, but it's not school.
It looks great. They should all feel super proud. So, okay, any other comments, discussion? Angie?
Sullivan,
Yes.
Seafood, yes. Bush,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Netta,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congrats to Coach Evans. Next is approval of the school calendar resolution.
Correct. Last month, we approved filing for the waiver. I did so. The DPI reached back out to me and asked for some more specific resolution language before granting that waiver. At which point in time I reached out to Shayna Lewis. I'd sent that on Shayna's response on to Angie. So hopefully all of you have a copy of that resolution language prepared by Shayna. And once that's prepared or once approved.
not in your packets. We just got it this morning. So
It's in the board book, so whoever.
it's in the board book. I can make copies of it real quick. Do you have it up?
Have it up.
Yeah, you can print it quick, that'd be great.
Probably read it and it takes
I can't
to
print
copy
it. Well, let me print from this, Angie.
Is it long to read or no?
7 short paragraphs.
It's less than 1 page.
I think you
Yeah, it's really-
Report.
I can have it for you.
Let me see, how many copies do I need?
I mean, just to summarize, it basically says, due to the pandemic, limiting school, and given that on February 14th, the board acknowledged the impact COVID had on the school, and it says, due to repeated and continuing closures and interruption of school, and that we met today to request a waiver. Be it resolved that we request a waiver to start school. The requirement is on or after September 1st, and we're asking for a waiver to start before that.
So it's pretty much what we discussed.
It's like putting it all.
Correct. Shayna Lewis actually just put it in kind of the whereas the school district school board and whereas on February 14th. So she's put it in all the legal terms and referenced the state statutes and administrative codes. So I believe that this is all it will take for the DPI to grant our waiver and fall back to the calendar that was presented to you and approved. Like Mr. Member Sullivan said, it's what we had in a previous conversation.
I don't know if it matters, but the paragraph that starts with the school board is missing a T. I'm sure they're not going to decline it because of the misspelling of it. It starts with the school board, second to third to last, if you don't.
Or that he district's request, I see. There's a small typo on that. It does not change the spirit of the document.
Yes, it does not.
Do you see it though?
Which paragraph are we talking about?
The second to last, it says the school board is hereby requesting that the DPI grant.
Yes. Okay. Yep. I see it.
There's a missing T on the
PDF.
Yep, should be able to. Be able to.
Thanks. Good catch. Any other concerns? Questions? Otherwise, we'll take a motion. Approve it.
Just a quick question, Mitch, when do we anticipate an answer?
I would imagine once this is sent in, probably within a week's time.
So if we approve and then they deny, then what? We have to
Then we would go back, we would have to start on no earlier than September 1st. And there was a calendar that was discussed. We would just revisit that calendar as a committee and then present that to the school board. But if they deny the early start, then they're forcing us to start no earlier than September 1.
Right. So I've seen, I haven't had any personal interactions, but I've seen like some Facebook comments about people asking what the school calendar looks like for next year. If we get a waiver approved in the next week, can we vote on that on the 25th, or we need to wait until the May meeting?
You basically voted on that calendar that was proposed in asking for that waiver. So that would be the calendar that we would be going with. So there would be no, once the waiver is granted, there would be no need to come back and approve that calendar. That would be the calendar that was presented at a prior board meeting.
Is there a plan to communicate those start and end dates or share the calendar with the public?
As soon as we can, yes.
As soon as the waiver is approved, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so looking for a motion.
Oh, I'll make a motion to approve this resolution.
Second.
Eisner, Seaver. Any other discussion?
Eisner?
Yes.
Janetka?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Seaver? Yes. Bush?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes. Okay, next is capital maintenance projects.
Yes, the first portion of the Joint Operations, Finance, and Personnel Committee meeting, we talked about some potential Fund 46 projects that we would like to do beginning this summer. Could even start earlier if at all possible with contractors. And in that proposal, the original proposal was for about $320,000 worth of projects. To refresh everyone's memory, the camera system, the security camera system in the high school is at least 10 years old. The server for storing some of those images is losing hard drive space, and we would need an overhaul. We had a walkthrough to add some additional cameras, give us the ability to tie the elementary system and the high school system together into one system. That total project, and for purposes of this spreadsheet, I do round up, and so there will be some savings, but that's about an $80,000 project. The next item we talked about, there were 3 sets of exterior doors. The hallways leading past the band room out the north side of the school, out past the locker rooms on the north side of the school. And then there's a set of exterior doors on the back side of Mr. Carey's Tech Ed shop. Those doors would be, for those sets of doors, it would be about $50,000. And then I've updated that spreadsheet a little bit. It was also brought up that the 4 locker room doors, exterior locker room doors, needed to be replaced. I would agree, and we received a quote of about $27,000 for those locker room doors to be replaced. The next item we talked about was seal coating the high school parking lot, the walkway that goes around the middle school, high school building, and the basketball court. That price quote came in at about $28,000. The next item was the stair treads in the middle school, high school. There are 3 sets of stairwells that go from the top floor down to the middle school level. Those treads are almost all of those treads are now 25, 26 years old. They are drying out, shrinking, and cracking. And we had received a quote to replace those stair treads. That price was $21,000. At the elementary school, we had a one-man lift that is now damaged, and basically the cost of repairing it would be more than the cost of replacing it. We're able to replace a single man lift with a two-man lift, which will aid in certainly cleaning the cafeteria, the library, and the gymnasium. And for ease and convenience, it's similar to the two-man lift that's in the middle school, high school building. So an individual can control that. So instead of having to be in a one-man lift where you go up and you're able to work in about a 4-foot square area and then down and then move the lift, this two-man lift, you can drive this two-man lift while you're up at that height. So it will speed things along and make it a lot more safe. That was an $11,000 cost. We talked about the fact that a year ago you authorized and approved upgrading or basically stripping down, repainting, and resealing the gym floor in the middle school, high school building, with all of the events that take place from the homecoming dance to Christmas programs to prom and graduations. We asked to get a price quote for a floor covering. We have a price quote of $12,000. It's a vinyl mat. It's a series of vinyl mats and a storage rack that we can use to help protect that floor and extend the life of that floor. The next item was to add some of the window blinds at the elementary school. We're still waiting on a quote. The individual was supposed to come out over our spring break, never did. Roger has reached out multiple times. We put a placeholder in of $30,000. We believe that will be too much, but I would rather err on the side of being too much and having money left over. We had a project that was approved a year ago. We're waiting for Iversons to come back and finish the north parking lot. They have to put a second coat of blacktop down. So we're waiting for them to come back and finish that. Then also at that meeting was asked to get a price quote to blacktop the gravel parking lot at the middle school, high school. It's where the visitors tend to park for home football events. We also have overflow parking for some of the major basketball events we might have, tournaments we have, a weekend tournament. We host either a sectional or regional wrestling tournament. So having that area blacktopped as well. And the price quote came in at just under $66,000. So while the original proposal at the operations committee meeting came in at about $320,000, with the additional of the gravel parking lot being blacktop and the 4 locker room doors, it actually brings the total cost up to about $400,000. This is all Fund 46 money. Fund 46 money must be spent on capital maintenance projects. And if approved in total, it would still leave us with over $400,000 as a balance in Fund 46.
We'd be spending half.
Roughly, yeah, just under half, yes.
I don't have an issue with the 4 doors, but $27,000 for 4 doors is a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah, and you're talking 4 single doors that you're, but
they're not going to get any better.
No, they will not.
Struggling with, and I was part of the conversation, but we didn't have a number. $66,000 to blacktop the gravel parking lot. having a hard time wrapping my mind around whether or not we get $66,000 worth of value out of that. The doors I don't have a problem with because they are part of this building and they are what you see when you pull up to the building. And like, I had no question about that one for me. The gravel parking lot for 66, a little hard for me to swallow. And I'd love to hear somebody talk about why they feel like that's a good direction to go.
Well, and I can say that this, when we blacktop the main driveway through that area from Madison around to, was it East Lake, that main driveway, we received a price quote at that time of about $55,000 to $56,000 to do it. Part of the reason of the cost saving is because they were already here doing a project. But like, I'm sure like everything else, their costs are going up. Now it's a separate project instead of a joint project, but I won't argue against your thoughts there, Joni, that is a large dollar amount for, I'll say 8 football games and, maybe 8 other events that we host throughout the entire school year. So maybe 16 events on a yearly basis. If you look at it as a one-time cost, that's pretty expensive 1-year cost, but again, it'll be there then for many years to come.
That's my question. How long do you think that part, once it's blacktop, how long do you think that would last? How much life do you think that would give us, given its, not daily use? That's probably gonna be snow plowed, but how long until we would have to kind of seal coat that again or deal with maintaining that?
I would think we would look at a couple years before we would look to seal coat it. And that is more preventative maintenance. If we do a seal coat out there, then once it's down, I'm not an expert, and I did not think to ask Roger that question when I received this price quote. And I don't know, Gary, through the township, if you blacktop a road, what's the life expectancy of something like that?
Typically, you would leave it sit for 2 to 3 years, and you'd probably seal it then. And I can't believe that would need to be touched for another 10 to 15 years after.
Right. I would say same, some of that same thought, you're putting car traffic on it and it's not being driven on a day-to-day basis. You're not running semis over that, or buses over that when you talk about buses coming in and out of that main driveway. So I would certainly think you'd get at least 15, maybe if we're lucky, we could even push 20 years out of a project like that.
The biggest thing with it is in the spring when the ground's thawing out, just keep traffic off of it, which I don't see any reason for traffic to be on it in the spring.
Right.
Mitch, what's the current, just kind of an idea of a ballpark? Is there a ballpark expenditure to maintain that as gravel as is? You sure I'm going with that?
Basically, no. I mean, I'm not sure if we've ever added gravel to it. In my time here in the district, they might use a skid steer and bucket and try to smooth it out if there's any kind of holes in it. We do plow it out from time to time when we know we have a big event coming up. So if it stays as gravel, it stays as gravel, and there wouldn't be any additional costs to that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
Just in the springtime, just so we know, we will have a girls' soccer game. That would be one of the events. I know, so one of the events would be that. One would probably be graduation. To Gary's point, when it thaws, we obviously would want to put a lot of people on it, but there's not. But there could be spring soccer. Sorry.
This is this whole total with this whole list of projects is a big ticket item, and obviously something we can't afford every year. So, do you have a sense after talking to Roger whether there's a similar long list of projects that we'll need to be talking about for next summer or the year after that? Or do you feel like this is kind of one of those every 3 to 5 years discussion where we are needing to make some big purchases and we just happen to have the funds for it right now.
I would say that this, yeah, I would agree with the second part of that statement. It's probably a 3 to 5 year kind of a thing. And again, I come back to that the building that you're sitting in is now 25, 26 years old. So things will happen at some point in time. Most likely, the biggest ticket item would probably be, if and when one of the boilers were to go down, those would probably be the biggest ticket items that I would foresee in the future. I mean, you have an elementary building that is basically new, top to bottom now. All of the mechanical systems are brand new in that building, so we should have at least 20 years worth of life out of that building and all of those systems. So yeah, I don't foresee a list like this inclusive and this costly for quite some time.
How many years did it take us to compile, over $800,000 in Fund 46, approximately?
I would say we're probably looking at 8 or 9 years.
To follow up on that, Mitch, if we make this kind of expenditure out of here, then what is your comfort level, how we had spoken about, borrowing a little bit from this fund in order to shore up a budget shortfall? Would that be too risky to do both?
I do not think so. And we'll know more what this fiscal year does. We'll know more, as we get near the end of it. And would there be an additional transfer back into Fund 46? One of the big things a couple of years ago, we had the TIF district in the city closed, and we were given a substantial amount of money, and it was, the decision was made to put that into Fund 46. So there'd been, that was a big bump in what that fund had available to it. We have been spending out of this fund now, I would say, probably the last 3 years to 4 years. This would be, I think, year 4 that we have spent money out of this fund. And it has kind of maintained kind of that $300,000 to $400,000 balance. We just had like I said, a big bump there. And these projects came along. Some of these projects were presented earlier and were pushed off. And now we're to the point where a few of these projects are needed. A couple other projects, it's like, yeah, we need to do something about it. And if we can take it out of Fund 46, that makes some of those other budgets, the capital maintenance budget and some of those other things, a little bit easier to maneuver with. So.
And did Roger give any indication about how much time they spend every year kind of tidying up that gravel lot? They spend a lot of time doing that, or because it looks, the problem I'm having with approving it is it actually, every time I've walked through there, it's pretty nice. There aren't a lot of puddles. When it drains quickly, obviously, because it's just gravel. I cut through there to go to football games sometimes when I walk that way. And I've never noticed it being a problem. So I think to me, that's more of a nice to have. And I personally don't think the district is in a place to have nice to haves right now. That's my thought just on that one piece. I support everything else. And I just have one question about the maps, but we can address that in a minute. But that's my thought on the gravel lot. I don't think it's a safety issue. I think it looks nice for you. And
Mitch, there's nothing here that we can cover with ESSER funds or any other kind of anything.
Not at this point in time, no.
Okay.
I think about like a year from now, we don't know what the next biennium budget's going to look like. And if we are looking at our entire capital maintenance budget coming out of this fund, and then, worst case scenario, we lose a boiler and suddenly I'm going to regret spending almost $70,000 to blacktop a gravel parking lot. So I don't feel good about that one piece of this picture.
Can I make a comment? Sure. And then also going back to Alan's comment where we're leaving our vehicles sit outside. maybe,
Spend money on that too.
There are other things.
yeah, this might be the item that. I think it's another-
This might be a good time, Mitch, to ask you about that. Has there been any discussion about having some kind of a covered parking area for school vehicles to extend the life of them in terms of like a carport or something like that, just to, not necessarily enclosed garage, but
I've had conversations with Roger about the possibility of extending that shed on the northwest corner, potentially putting, some additional bays in there that would allow some of those vehicles to be parked out of the elements year round. Anytime, the unfortunate thing, anytime, if we were to extend that building at all, there are a lot of codes that we would need to make sure that the entire building is brought up to. And one of the things I think Roger had mentioned was that we would need to make sure that at least has a restroom in there. So you're talking about having to put, water and sewer out to that building now that just has electricity and heat in, a heating element in it. Some of the equipment, there is a shed basically in my backyard that the school picked up when they purchased some of the Ivy property. And some of that equipment gets stored down there. I mean, there's a brush attachment and a snowblower attachment for the skid steer, and that gets stored down there. So in the off season, that's out of the elements. There is room in the shed, in Roger's shed, that like the V plow and some of those kinds of things can get put out of the elements during the summer as well. But yeah, there's not enough room to park all the trucks and all the vans there, but we can continue to explore that. And if it's not an extension of the building, it's a separate building. What kind of codes would we have to run a restroom in there? And so instead of making it one building, do we make it two buildings back there? I mean, we can certainly explore that if that's a direction you'd like to see us go.
Here's a question for you, Mitch, and I don't think this is something you're probably going to like since it is in your backyard, so to say. And covered buildings, what if a person was to add one of them down there? And maybe I'm wrong because I haven't been inside these buildings out back here, but I'm really curious as to how much unnecessary storage is being done in there that we couldn't put that new plow truck in there and move some of that stuff to a different place.
That, if we don't need to worry about power, and if we don't have to run lights to it and things, that's certainly a possibility, and again, there's plenty of land down here that, you could put another building in there and it would still be out of the way, so that if there's a desire down the road to do something else with those two lots that the district owns, there would still be plenty of space available. So, I mean, that's something we could certainly explore as well, something big enough to drive into and put some of those things, like you say, out of the elements, out of harm's way. We can certainly explore that.
Go ahead and make the motion that we accept the capital maintenance budget as presented with the exception of the gravel lot project.
Second that.
did you hear that, Mitch?
I did. So that would bring down, again, estimating on the higher side, that would bring your Fund 46 expenditures down to about $335,000.
I'm assuming those mats for the gym floor, those are designed for pristine floors. So in other words, the mats themselves are not going to damage the floor.
Correct. Yeah, they would serve as a floor covering. So they're in essence protecting the floor.
That's their job. It's not something that.
Right, no, they are literally gym floor coverings is what they are, so.
And have you been able to brainstorm a solution for the storage? I think the quote included a rack. But the question was, can we put that rack that isn't
Yes.
in the way?
Right now, I believe we will store it on the stage with the scorers tables for the time being until we can get a better solution.
I do think it would be smart, though, to try to get some kind of idea of what protecting the expenditure that we made for the vehicles would cost.
And we can come back, the Fund 46, an expenditure of that nature is not necessarily as time sensitive as some of these other ones that will be projects that will need to be done during the summer. So we can certainly come back at any other board meeting and address that, vehicle storage, equipment storage and those kinds of things. So that could always come at a upcoming board meeting as well.
Or shuffling things around like Gary said.
Some kind of a storage audit, like what do we have,
Yes.
where is it, what can we do different?
Absolutely.
Okay, we got a motion from Bush, second from Seaver. Basically approving everything except blacktopping the gravel lot. Any other discussion, comments? Okay.
Bush,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Janetka,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Seafood,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. The next is approval of health insurance.
One of the last emails I received indicated that I was informed that we were looking at a 5.9% increase on our insurance. And then at the last minute, there was a percent reduction. So we're looking at a 4.9% increase in the dean in the exact identical health plan that we currently have. And in essence, we're in a 2-year agreement. So while it does not necessarily rely on action, you can certainly approve moving forward, keeping the plan the same for the upcoming year at the 4.9% increase.
So does the current budget account for a 5.9% increase?
Yes, when I was working with Marcia, we were looking at that using the 5.9%. So I've informed her that it was coming in at 4.9. So she's rolling that into the budget as we move forward.
And that's going to save us how much for next year?
It's a great question, Dr. Dunn. I don't have an answer for you at this time. I will get one.
I would guess it's probably in the low 5 figures, wouldn't you say? Not a super significant amount.
Yes, I would say that's pretty accurate.
Okay. The bottom line is it's good news and it's less than we had anticipated.
Correct.
So you're recommending approval.
I am recommending approval of that.
That's without changing any employee contribution as far as deductibles and contribution premium.
Correct.
I'm going to support approving, but I don't want this to stop the conversation about us continuing to be aware that may be a lever we have to pull in the future. I don't want the mentality to be like, okay, we got past that. We don't have to think about it again. For us as a board or for the staff, that this is still probably something that as times get tighter, we're going to have to revisit.
And just to be clear, Mitch, I mean, after next year, we could go out to bid.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Everything and anything would be an option for insurance in the following school year.
Well, I'll take a motion to approve this health insurance premium increase.
Motion to approve
Give me that time, Bob.
Over to Janetka. Any other discussion, questions?
Sullivan,
Yes.
Seafood,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Janetka,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, next is approval of certified staff compensation.
This also came out of the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting. I don't know if Member Bush would like to speak to upcoming agenda items on certified staff and support staff and some of the conversations we had at the committee meeting?
Yeah, so we met April 17th, I believe, March 17th. And discuss some options, starting from, where CPI was. And in a prior meeting, we had the opportunity to meet with some members of the staff who represented the staff and, discuss some of their feedback, some of our concerns, where the budget was at, and kind of came up with a solution we believe is fair to the budget, but fair to the staff. Long term, it doesn't make them as whole as full CPI. However, we feel like it's made the effort to make them whole for next year, and then see what we can do with biennium and where things are at a year from now. So what we landed on after looking at some different percentages and different opportunities with ESSER funds and other funds available was recommending a 3% CPI, and then also a one-time stipend out of ESSER of $1,500, which outside of administration on a pay scale would then match or exceed what the remaining amount of the increase would have been had we gone full CPI. And we also just kind of discussed an opportunity to kind of satisfy steps. Are we going to review that at another meeting?
Well, you certainly can, or it can be part of this discussion as well, that, you give the 3%, give steps, because we did talk about the ability to use ESSER funds to take care of steps for this upcoming year as well.
Okay. And the other piece, we also recognize, for those staff members who were not receiving a step or a year of service as they're used to, we did have an amount left in ESSER 2 that we could use for those specific staff who have a step coming but are not getting it. Use that amount as kind of an overall solution to attempt to make the staff whole and show our overwhelming appreciation for the job they've done, while also appreciating the situation we are in budget-wise. Be sure we're not putting ourselves in a bad situation. So I thought it was a fantastic committee meeting all the way around with great input. And I think that this is what we've supported out of
unanimously from the finance committee.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. So if I'm hearing you right, Andy, so it's 3% CPI plus steps plus a $1,500 stipend.
Not plus steps.
Okay.
So it's 3% CPI.
Okay.
That is the entire budget impact.
Okay. Everything else is in the stipend.
A one-time stipend of $1,500 using ESSER funds, and then a one-time stipend for the step staff of a different ESSER fund to acknowledge steps that were not achieved, that they did not get this year.
Okay. And so my understanding is, if I remember my notes here, the steps stipend is like 64 grand. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Total cost. And then Mitch, I also have in my notes, I found here that the healthcare decrease, the 5.9% to the 4.9%, I have here that that's going to save us $70,000. Does that ring a bell?
It could be that amount. It could be that much, yes.
I think I remember you saying that because of that, that allows us to accommodate this kind of steps stipend a little more easily in the budget. Am I getting that correct?
Yes, that sounds accurate.
I want to call everybody's attention back to the idea that while we want to do everything we can to make the staff whole from both a CPI perspective and a STEPS perspective, we're trying to very carefully not commit ourselves to something we can't handle long-term. So we know that right now, because of an increase in funds through ESSER, we can do this, but the reason we're doing the 3% instead of the 4.7% is kind of a long-term strategy to make sure that we can maintain a balanced budget. I sent out some numbers to the board earlier today. Right now, salary and benefits, they make up close to 70% of the revenues that the school has available to spend. And that number has grown over the last 5 years. So from the 2016-2017 school year to the 21-22 school year, that number's grown a couple percent. So it's inching upwards. And that's okay, things move up and down, but that is part of the reason that as a board, we are so aware and being so cautious about not just going all in on the 4.7, even if today we could make the numbers work, trying to preserve our ability to make it work in the future.
Well, I'll disagree with you. We had those special budget meetings because of the CPI alone. So had we not be talking about the CPI, the budget is balanced. The paper come out talking about the $330,000 budget deficit, but the paper never said exactly what it's for. It is for salary increases based on the CPI. That is what it's all about.
We could say salary freezes, no CPI, and the budget is balanced. And I think as a board, we're committed to saying we recognize the value that our teachers bring, and we want to do everything we can to show that, but we can't go so far as to put ourselves in an impossible position going forward.
And this is kind of jumping, not off topic, but so like our support staff wage, are we voting tonight to increase that?
I think that is next on the agenda, yeah.
Right, that's my question is that something that's budgeted for as an increase? Is this all stemming from the $15?
Yeah. We looked at that increase and then applied the same thing. We applied steps and 3% to the support staff. So that's part of the whole budget packet. So you could actually be approving items 5 and 6, certified staff and support staff wage. You could be approving that together. We would apply those same principles to both sets of staff members.
That answers my question very well. Thank you.
Mitch, just to be clear, for these steps, because it's not a set amount, are we just going to calculate what each staff member would have received in their step, and that is their amount? Or do we need to give you a per staff member amount? We kind of went off what all of the steps would be, but obviously all the steps are not.
Right. I think we can cover the step and then use the $1,500 stipend to equate to the 4.7%. That where, as you said before, that the stipend really makes somebody whole for this upcoming school year. So I think we could accomplish both of those things and still maintain a balanced budget.
You're saying now, with changes, you think we can include the steps in the actual budget itself?
Yes.
Just so we address our
Yes, I do. I believe we can.
properly.
Yes.
Can I repeat it back, Andy, to make sure I understand? This is for me, you guys may all get it. So it would be 3% and steps as ongoing, that's our ongoing commitment. And we would do a $1,500 stipend to say, hey, we recognize we're shorting you 1.7% of CPI because we don't feel like we can commit to that long term, but here's a payout in lieu of to say, we really appreciate what you do. Is that?
Yeah, Mitch said that's what we could fit in the.
Okay, but that, like,
but
that's what
I
you're.
mean, do we need to have a conversation about how we feel about those steps year over year?
Yeah, I think we do.
Because that's different than
Well,
being able to fit it in.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to support it. No offense to any staff members, but I'm not going to get off this school board leaving this district tied down to that. And that's just the way I am. Because there's no bright shining light looking ahead of me saying it's going to be better the next year or the year after.
And there's every indication says CPI is going to be even higher next year. And we have no reason to, I mean, we can hope that this fiscal cliff isn't coming and the next biennium budget increases funding by 20%. I think that might be unrealistic. That was sarcasm. I think it's completely unrealistic.
So, Mitch, do we have sufficient ESSER funds to cover the equivalent of steps?
Yes.
Without taking it out of the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
As a stipend or
as a stipend, right. So I think the question is whether we would make a motion to approve steps as a budgetary expense or as a one-time, as a salary increase moving forward or as a one-time stipend that would not have a long-term budgetary impact.
I think back to, we had a group of teachers who came and presented, and one of them shared a really well done analysis around, here's what it would be if I had received I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was if I had received CPI and steps on time every year, and here's where I am, here's what the difference is. And I'm weighing that in my mind as much as I'm uncomfortable committing the steps right now because of its long-term commitment. I also recognize that means that next year, teachers who are not getting their step this year and getting a payout instead, are still at that same base. That isn't ideal.
Well, if things are rosier in the future, though, we could retroactively award them their steps, right? Like, and I don't mean retroactively giving them back pay because that's what the stipend's for. I mean, people who would have made that step, you could give it to them a year delayed or 2 years
give
delayed.
the stipend and then adjust next year.
Just
is the
double
difference.
step everybody if the money is there.
If things are better. Because what I want to give people as much as we can and be as fair as we can. I don't want to be in the situation where last month where we're talking about removing an employee. So, that's a little bit of that's how I see the balance,
I also, if we're sitting here 2 years from now and talking about referendum, I want to know that I don't want to have to justify our decision tonight about putting obligating ourselves to additional expenditures going forward when that's a real possibility on the horizon if funding doesn't change for the next biennium budget.
Okay. So we want to make a motion of what we should do. And I think the proposal is to do this for teachers and support staff. Correct?
I won't separate one from the other.
Right, me neither.
That's my recommendation, that you treat them both the same.
So I make a motion that we increase salaries by 3%, that we provide a $1,500 stipend out of ESSER funds in lieu of the additional 1.7% of CPI that we are not including, and that for staff members who would be receiving a step, that we pay that out as a one-time cash payment through a separate ESSER fund.
I second that motion.
Heisner, Seaver, motion. Mitch, does that read back to you in a way that's workable?
Yes. Fortunately, Angie's taking good notes because mine looks like a lot of chicken scratching back here, left-handed, but yeah, that's something that we can certainly work with.
Mr. Bush, you want any comments or questions? I think you're thinking over there.
No, I'm good. I was thinking about the support staff and how the pay scale's different. It looks like to them, but 3% is nearly what I get in this step annually, and $1,500 probably exceeds what the step could give them next year. So I'm good with that. So I was just thinking about if we're doing it together, since the scales are different, the impact.
I appreciate that.
In a moment of transparency, for those who weren't able to attend the finance committee meeting or the whole committee meeting, we did the math and we said that for our staff who is at the top end of the master scale, that this is still, at least for this year, financially advantageous to do the 1,500 as opposed to the additional 1.7 of CPI. So for this specific year, no one is losing. It's that it doesn't carry forward in subsequent years.
Any further comments? Hey, Angie, we'll vote on it.
Eisner,
Yes.
Netka,
Yes.
Sullivan,
No.
Hebrew,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, so we took care of support staff wage schedule. So next is the additive schedule compensation.
I'm going to make a motion that we table this. Got some concerns with the schedule that could potentially be addressed as performance related. We don't have a closed session on tonight's agenda, so I'm going to ask that I've confirmed with Mitch that this doesn't need to be a contract issued right now, as opposed to the other ones. And there are some things I think we have to look at that I think for the safety of whether or not it's deemed performance based, that we have a closed session to discuss it.
And we'd like to table it to the May regular meeting.
To the May meeting, or if it's easier or helpful for Mitch and Angie, the April 25th meeting.
Mitch, do you have a preference of?
This May meeting is long to begin with, and I don't need to add.
Better?
Would be good. We could do that.
Is that okay with you, Mitch, to table this to the April 25th meeting?
We certainly can.
So Andy, is there a breakout of the, or Mitch, I'm not seeing it in board book, but I may have missed it.
I didn't upload anything.
Okay, so where would I find the details around this?
Do we have any of the available numbers? I think it's hard for us to approve.
Yeah, I don't have any.
We can get it and email that out to the school board.
Thank you.
Are we okay doing the next 3 on April 25th? Since we don't have them? Is that can you up at all? More weeks?
You're talking about the additive schedule, the summer school wage and summer contracts?
Yeah, just because we're voting on numbers we don't have.
So in my mind, the summer school wage one, we probably need to approve so people know if they want to commit to teaching summer school.
They can probably made up their mind.
Yeah, whether we approve it for, $1 more an hour probably isn't going to change whether or not somebody says yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's more of a wage. I think we can set that one. The other two are lists of contracts with a sum and people on them that I think we should probably at least diligently look over before we finally approve it.
So would you like to make a motion to table?
I'll amend my motion to table
Items 7, 8, and 9.
7 and agenda item 6.9. And as long as you've got the numbers for the proposed summer school wage schedule, Mitch, I think we can address that, because those are it's just a wage schedule.
Okay.
If you've got those numbers.
We can do that.
I will second the motion.
Okay. So Bush, Sullivan to table 7 and 9. 425 meeting.
Bush,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Janetka,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Hebert, yes, Dunn,
Yes.
Aaron, can you just make sure you session on that meeting?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The newbies out right. Okay.
So I messed up.
Sure. Okay, Mitch, next is summer school wage scale.
Typically for any of our teachers, it is a percentage of their per diem. And that's kind of what it's been all along. So if you're looking for the total, what summer school will cost us, I need to know who's going to be teaching summer school before I can give you that dollar amount. But the wage scale is basically based on the teachers per diem and then a percentage of that.
What is the percentage? No.
I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me, and I can get it to you. I can reach out to Marcia, but
Mr. Redwick said maybe 80%.
that sounds right. 80% of their per diem for summer school.
Are you proposing that we keep it the same percentage?
Yeah. Yes.
and since it will be in July, it would be the new
Salary. Yeah.
Mitch, are we sticking with the same amount of time for summer school as last year, or is there still time or thought to put into extra to prevent, some learning loss, given how much learning loss has occurred for some kids?
I'll let Mr. Renwick address that. I know he reached out to the elementary staff about trying to schedule summer school.
Good. We'll do the 3 weeks. Thinking about the staff and not wanting to burn anyone out. We are looking at individual students who have those kinds of concerns about they progress like we'd like to do. Set them up with one-on-one tutoring, which is effective. We are looking at individual cases.
And is there an outlet for if parents are concerned about learning loss for the child over the summer to reach out to you to get on board?
Would the one-on-one tutoring be available for all grades or just elementary school grades?
I guess I'd have to talk to Matt if there was a need there. It gets a little harder with kind of subject specific tutoring and have one person available or not, but be open to it.
I know that there's been some interest in the past of maybe volunteers for tutoring. If that's allowable.
Or peer tutoring, like some kid who's accelerated in math.
So what about this idea? I mean, what if all levels identify kids who may be a good candidate for that and see what the demand for tutoring might be, and then we can maybe do a call for volunteer tutors if we don't have enough staff to help?
So our summer school done a little different at the high school.
Okay.
Ms. Heisner actually runs our high school summer school.
Okay.
That's for you want to join it? Oh,
Not this Ms. Heisner.
No, Ms. Heisner actually, she did it last year for us. She ran our summer school because we do credit recovery because we're looking at the, okay, is this going to affect them in the future? Is it this course? I will tell you, first semester we had one, maybe two kids that would qualify for summer school for the first semester, like one or two classes.
Okay.
So we don't have a high watch list this year. Unlike last year, I think we had 7 or 8 because we use that Wednesdays in January starting to get those kids caught up with that stuff.
Yeah.
Where this summer we probably only have, I would guess 3 to 5 kids that are going to need something.
You already have a system in place to identify kids who are maybe failing and not getting credit for a class.
Yeah.
And Ms. Eisner helps them get caught up.
Yes. Yep. She runs it through out at Options. We ran it last year and it seemed to work pretty well to get those kids caught up credit wise and stuff. And like I said, this year I'm going to guess we might have 3 at this very moment.
That's good.
Yeah.
Vicki, what about you?
We have semester failure in academic courses. And right now, I believe we only have one student that failed first semester right now.
So what do the summer school options look like for middle school kids?
Well, we run the same dates, 3-week program.
Okay.
Right, but it's just for the kids who failed their
Like
course.
the credit recovery kind
Yeah.
of thing. Okay. I think as long as kids are getting a chance to recover.
Ours is the first
remediate over the
first
summer,
2 weeks,
that's-
usually right after school is when ours is. High school.
Has there been any thought of maybe expanding that to maybe not kids who have failed, but maybe kids that are at risk or maybe
We
fall
try to keep-
behind or?
So, something we do at the high school level, I print grade reports every week on Monday and actually share them with the staff so we know who we're trying to make sure we're keeping an eye on. And we have a study skills group too that meets Tuesday, Thursday, Friday after school to kind of help keep track of that and make sure that we're paying attention to all that. Mrs. Brunson does a very nice job with those kids too, in the sense of meeting with them and explaining, here's what you need to graduate, here's what you need here. So we try to stay on top of it at the high school level because it is a little more time bound, right? Credits. So.
Okay, great, thank you. right, I'll take a motion to approve the summer school wage scale recommended.
So we have the per diem for teachers that work for us.
Okay.
But those that may not work for us or with a base wage, correct, Mitch? Or
Yeah, on a per hour basis.
per hour basis, it's been $25 per hour in the past. So that may be higher than some of the ones for some. Is that not correct?
I think it's a little higher than the area one. It might, I don't know for sure. I don't know. You want to add a kind of a wrinkle that too, it's $25 for someone who's outside the district, but it's 80% of base wage into this district. Let's say we have, for example, Courtney meets, she'd be better hot. In the $25 versus 80%. What I mean? Yeah. So I kind of, for our people who are here already and want to do summer school, but they're at the low end of the salary schedule. No, not advantageous for them too. You know what I mean? It's not because they already work.
That being said, can we put a $25 minimum on?
The better of 25.
Yeah, the better of $25 or anything.
Yes, you can do that.
Because that would be a small cost, and I think help with more continuity for the students.
I just had one teacher ask, or I don't know if it was that or if it was maybe an assistant hourly wage, like that. They didn't even ask. Just I want to make sure that whoever is taking that teacher, you can go toward the.
Okay, so Mitch, that seems like a reasonable plan for you, just to set that as a minimum?
Yes.
Across 25 as a
Yes.
minimum?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll take a motion to approve the 80% per diem for staff. With a minimum of $25 per hour, in addition to the base wage for non-staff. That makes sense? Say that right?
At minimum, $25 per hour for certified staff
Yes.
or their per diem at 80.
Right. We would continue the same wage for non-staff, non-pointer staff.
So moved.
Okay.
That's
Second, okay, Medka Heisner. Either comment, question on that?
Are we comfortable with obtaining for school staff at this point?
I've got 5 people. Or an internal one is. I'm both are pretty well.
The 50, the same number of staff people for
Well, we're gonna talk on.
Was 25 competitive? I mean, is that?
Let's say so. He's doing 20, I think.
Either comments, questions? Angie?
Mecca,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Seabrook, yes, Bush,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, next is the COVID mitigation plan. Did everyone see the email from Nurse Lindsay? So basically, she kind of proposed a revised plan that's more up to date with current state of things, including isolation protocols for COVID positive and updating the mask policy to reflect current CDC's mask recommendations, which are more based on community level and have much higher thresholds than previous. anyone have any comments, questions? Mitch, do you have any recommendations for the board?
I think to basically what Nurse Lindsay had proposed is basically what the board has, kind of the direction the board is given, and this just keeps it in writing. And I think it would get us to the end of the school year, at which point in time we can come back to the recommendation that we put that in the policy, in board policy, where it talks about infectious diseases and you know, it gets us to the end of the school year with a consistent fashion that what we've been practicing already.
So I guess my question is that given the language that was passed the last meeting to go into the student handbooks to already clarify the right for exclusion from school, if you're removing contact tracing from the plan in general and the other points that she outlined, I guess I'm not really seeing why it's necessary to bog down with this at this particular juncture, because we've already determined that, number one, the communicable disease policy was updated to include COVID specifically. And furthermore, we've updated the handbooks, past language to go to the handbooks, that further clarifies the right for exclusion. So I'm just not really seeing why trying to go down and pick apart this to basically nothing.
What
is
I'm getting
beneficial.
out of it is just another way to keep COVID in the meetings, which is why I'd like to make a motion that we get rid of the COVID matrix in its entirety, and be done with this.
Yeah, I'd second that motion. I do second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to basically terminate the current plan, current COVID mitigation plan. Couldn't find the right word. Gary, what did you say?
Eliminate the COVID matrix plan in its entirety.
Okay.
Gary, would you I just want to ensure again, I second, but I would want to ensure that face coverings are not only allowable per the dress code, but welcomed per our culture within this district for those that would like to wear face coverings. Correct, Mitch? I've read all the dress codes. There's nothing disallowing.
That's correct.
Any comments, questions?
Yeah, I'll just start out by saying, for me, this whole thing is over with. As far as I'm concerned, it was over last August when the same people who were telling us how we were supposed to be voting, how we're supposed to be acting, were not doing the same thing in their own time. I made it very well known last August that if we quit testing, this would go away. It was mentioned in December that if we back off the contact tracing and quit testing, it will go away. I didn't bring that up, but it was mentioned and it was argued. And it actually got to the point in January where we couldn't contact trace and we couldn't test. So we quit doing it. And I'll be damned if it didn't go away. And I'm extremely disappointed at how this has been used to push children and their education. And I'm extremely disappointed at the biased approach of running meetings and how this has been allowed to divide a community. I can't express how disappointed I am, but I won't apologize for my feelings. It's only for the fact that, I'm even going to go further, only for the fact that we're getting close to the midterms, that COVID has pretty much gotten out of the news, and Russia invaded Ukraine, that COVID is not even being talked about anymore. And it's extremely sad that we sat here and used children's education. And I'm just very disappointed by it.
I'm just going to stand on the ground personally that I believe we have strong policies. We have, albeit it took me a minute to get to introducing it to the handbook and maybe, presenting it in a way that was not so seen as attacking, I suppose. But I think we have the policy to ensure that our students and our staff and are safe. It's allowable to return to, the common sense fact of if you're sick, stay home, and that goes for anything. I think it affords, certainly our school nurse more time to do, duties in general. And I just, I stand behind the policy, and I believe that our policy has our district and the health of everyone that we care about within it, and its best interest.
I believe what would still remain in the COVID policy, there is still a mask policy based on the new CDC guidelines. CDC is high, it says it's high. I think we still have that in there, do we not?
We don't
Yes.
have this CDC guideline policy.
No,
We have
we have-
ours.
we have-
Right, we have ours, but it's basically something that's still in there that provides protection. Should community level hospitalization, things like that get high again, there's a protection.
But we're no longer measuring against a community level standard either. Nor are we contact tracing within our building in order to elevate it to a level at which that mask matrix would come into play.
I think we still have those CDC, well, our version of CDC guidelines in the matrix.
It's by building.
We're not using it. And it's by building now, yes. We're not using it. No one's wearing masks now because the numbers are not. I think those numbers are at such a high level that I'd be more comfortable leaving it there, because if that much is there, with the minimum amount of testing that's going on, I think it'd be ludicrous not to wear masks.
Dr. Dunn, I think Nurse Lindsay has her hand icon raised.
Oh.
I guess I was just going to make that comment that this was not intended to keep COVID in the picture. It's just intended to reflect, what I've been told to do, since the mitigation plan is still, it still exists. And so if you're not going to get rid of it, I would want the plan to reflect what I've been asked to do. So whatever you decide is okay by me. This version is just a much shortened version. And I specifically, if you're not going to get rid of the whole thing, I specifically do want to address whether or not, or what you would like, how you would like us to handle close contacts that I'm being made aware of. We're not looking for them, but once somebody tells me they're a close contact, I have to follow the board approved plan. So I would like updated guidance on how you would want to handle those.
Jane, I'm just wondering if you could tell me if you feel comfortable, given the policy that's laid out and in particular the update to the most recent handbook, to be able to safely control a situation of any communicable disease independent of the COVID plan. Do you feel comfortable that you would be able to send that student home and thereby, exclude them from school without the COVID plan?
That is what we're doing. I mean, whatever communicable disease it is, we're sending them home. But I guess I need to know, am I still going to be testing? I mean, I just need this plan addressed. And I'm not going to say whether I feel comfortable controlling COVID, because I'm sort of, following the experts in this new contagious disease. I'm not an expert at it myself. I'm just trying to do my best to follow the plan, and whatever you decide that is.
You said that you've added the up-to-date symptom screening checklist and substituted the mask guidelines. Is there anything else that's in this COVID mitigation plan that's not currently in the policies and procedures that we approved previously?
The checklist, the screening checklists are basically the same. They're written a little differently, but it's basically the same one single, the 3 major symptoms or a combination of 2 or more other symptoms. And then the mask matrix, to me, it made more sense to follow the CDC one instead of reinventing the wheel. And then just made it clear that we're not contact tracing in school. And then I removed all the language that talks about maintaining 3 feet and 6 feet and that kind of thing, because we're not doing that. And that's really the major changes that I made.
I'd just like to point out that it would take 70 cases in the elementary school to return to masks.
Correct. Right, but in December, 5 cases
I know.
wasn't supported. Well, just so we're on the same path.
I guess my point is now is that if there are 70 cases,
There's an issue.
that's a big problem. And
I would not disagree.
Right, if we had 70 influenza cases, we probably would.
And that's where I lean back on the policy itself, is that number is such a high threshold that we have the policy itself in order to put a pause on learning in general. If there's that big of a problem, I don't care what the disease is.
What about the testing and the asymptomatic 5 days or symptomatic isolation for 5 days versus asymptomatic, and like procedurally, like I like the policy we're covered. How about documenting procedurally what is expected? Do we have that somewhere? If we revoke the policy, we don't have this in place.
I would guess, Dr. Dunn, that would then fall to whatever the current CDC guideline is for that particular disease, and that the school would then exclude based upon whatever the best judgment of medical professional is.
I think that's
That's what makes sense to me.
That's an interesting question. So, Jane, if this mitigation plan is eliminated, and basically the default instructions to you would be to handle every situation in accordance with current up-to-date CDC guidelines, would that give you enough guidance for positive cases, testing, close contacts, that kind of thing?
Well, I think that would be more strict than our plan. And is that really what you want me to do? I think CDC guidance is more strict than what we have. So is that really a direction you want to go?
But remember, we also removed specific language about other specific communicable diseases that we are now expecting to be at Jane's discretion, or whoever's discretion, to decide at which they can come back to school. Like, we removed out of the elementary school handbook, we removed the specific point that said chickenpox. 7 days or until dry.
But those are listed just as examples.
Right, exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying, is that's an example to the policy.
But we didn't change the rule with chickenpox. We just removed it as an example.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
So that then, therefore, rather than trying to continue to cite a specific COVID example, I would think that we could go with what the recommendation is. Now, whether or not that's more or less strict, we're not talking about then particularly, a mask setting in place. We're talking about whether or not a child that is sick can return to school, or a staff member that is sick can return.
I think you are a little bit, though, talking about if we defer to the CDC and Jane's supposed to follow that, the first thing she does after she gets a positive test is contact trace anybody within 6 feet that is not wearing a mask. By the CDC guidelines, I mean, that's where the contact tracing guidelines come from. So if we're going to default to that, we are going back to.
I suppose I'd have to find out then and research if there's similar proposed guidance from the CDC for, other communicable disease.
Well, I guarantee you there are.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And if we're following that now or not.
I would assume we are. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that we choose this disease not to follow CDC guidance on, where we've followed CDC guidance on every other communicable disease So it makes sense to me to be consistent with public health experts, both on a national, state, and local level. So I wouldn't argue with following CDC guidance, but to Andy's point, the CDC is erring on the side of caution with COVID, especially in schools. And that would mean we'd be dealing with testing and contact tracing and or at least dealing with close contacts. Which I think my larger point here is that I know that our masks are off, our cases are down. I know that this pandemic has been taking its toll on students, probably more than a lot of different groups. But I think that the reality is, COVID is not over. It's something we're going to have to live with and deal with, and it's constantly evolving. And I think more importantly, I think there's a lot of parents that are still really nervous about COVID. And they still want to know, does the school have a plan? If there's a positive in the school, or if we have a lot of positive in the school, or are we prepared? And if we eliminate everything we have in place that we've established, we really have no plan if, God forbid, we have another huge outbreak either in the community or elsewhere, and there's at-risk people that suffer from it. So I think the last point I want to make is, I think that this revised plan not only reassures some parents and students and staff that are really concerned about it, but it's also consistent with what we're currently doing, meaning that it's not super strict. The mask requirements are very relaxed compared to prior requirements. I think it's nice to be able to have free testing to identify sick kids and why they're sick. And I think this reassures a large part of the district that still care about this as an issue.
I'm not saying that I don't care about this issue. I'm saying I think it provides a false sense of security. I digress.
A false sense of security for who?
I think that, standing up the COVID plan in general versus relying on our very, very strong policies that we've had all along, you could make the argument based on what you just said that the COVID matrix itself was unnecessary because we could have followed CDC guideline all along, given the fact that we already follow CDC guideline for other communicable disease.
Well, if we had followed the CDC mask requirements, it would have been way more strict.
I understand. But I'm just saying, I think that, when you look at the actual what's there, I just think it provides a false sense of security.
To who? The board?
To people that, no, not the board. To people that, like you just mentioned, still care about COVID. I think if people looked at the actual numbers, it would probably be a little less of a favorable response. But, like I said, I believe that our policy stands well enough in order for us to move forward. Not that it's not real, not that it's completely gone, not that it'll ever be completely gone. I've never said that one single moment that I've sat on this board, not once. I just believe that we have strong policy, that we could move away from this, and I trust between Mitch's judgment and Jan's judgment that it would be a positive thing to move forward, and that we would still include those who are worried, that those who would like to still wear masks would absolutely be welcome. That's my position.
So there is a question, right? We have
There's a motion in a second. Yeah. Anyone else want to discuss?
Somebody talked to me about any other concerns for removing this. Now my concern is you're falling back to the CDC guidelines, which we have not followed in I mean, so I guess that would be my concern for moving this is we're saying, okay, now it's May of year 2 and you know, we're good with the CDC.
I personally think we should have.
Right, and I know that's where you stand. I'm just saying, you know, the board as a whole has not been there in 2 years, and now we're saying to get rid of this, we're good with that.
I'm struggling with like policy at a high level and procedure more at like this is what we're actually going to do. Like hey, a kid comes in and has been coughing all day. Do we test him? Do we not test him? If we don't test him, does he have to stay home for 5 days? Like we need, in my mind, that part needs to be spelled out somewhere, or we actually need to just make it up as she goes.
Well, that is my main concern, Joni, right there. Exactly what you said is, do I test? Do I not test? I want that to be part of the guidance I get from you, because that's going to be the number one question. Because right now the tests do provide some reassurance to people. And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, which way you should vote. That would be something I would really want some clarification for.
Just to be clear, Jane, if there was no COVID mitigation plan, you would take guidance from the public health department as?
Well, I wouldn't know really what to do, I guess. That would be my default because that's what I do for other communicable diseases. But again, that's going to be much more strict than what we've got here. And if you don't want me to do that, I'm going to need some clear guidance on what you really do want me to do. So if you, instead of eliminating it, you could change what I've sent you. But I would need something because our handbooks does not include all the little details that are being discussed tonight.
The handbook just assumes you would follow CDC guidance for all communicable diseases.
Correct.
This question.
Everyone's okay with that?
Can you tell me the wording of what we're voting on?
Eliminating the COVID matrix in its entirety.
Mitigation plan. Mitigation plan.
Okay.
Right, you don't want just to limit the matrix, you want to eliminate the whole thing, right, Gary? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Hebrew, yes. Bush,
No.
Eisner,
No.
Netka,
No.
Dunn,
No. Okay. Does anyone want to approve this plan as updated and revised?
So Jane, I just want to make sure I understand what you submitted to us today is what you're currently doing. Oh.
Yes. But the one thing that I have a question about is, we are not contact tracing at school. So basically we're ignoring close contacts, even though we might be aware of them if they were exposed at school or a school related event. But if someone tells me they had a birthday party and they tested positive, and now I am aware of all of these close contacts that were not from school, am I going to follow? Am I treating them like a close contact, or are we not giving them any sort of restrictions or anything? Are we just basically pretending like we don't know they're a close contact?
What have you been doing the last 4 months? I mean, there's no contact tracing, so there's.
No, in the last 4 months, I've been following the mitigation plan that you guys had approved and treating them like a close contact. So they had to mask and test.
I don't know. Jane, maybe you or Dr. Dunn, you could speak to this. As far as contact tracing and finding out somebody was positive and how many people are actually testing, I think very few people are testing right now. And I think we're missing so many that I don't think contact tracing, I'm asking more than I'm saying. But in my mind right now, I don't know that contact tracing, it's kind of like using a sieve. to try to pan for gold with holds this big, to me right now. I don't know. It seems like you're just looking at the numbers of positives, which are going up slightly. It seems to me that so few people are testing now, or they're testing at home, that the number of people who would actually catch that are positive would be just a very minor number compared to those who are.
This current proposed plan does not talk about contact tracing. It talks about what to do when you know you have a close contact.
Okay.
For example, household. So, you have a positive student, symptomatic student. Nurse Lindsay and the teacher and administrator know everyone who's in that house is by definition a close contact. You don't have to trace it. You're just like, oh, you're living with the person. You're obviously a close contact. So what do we do with them? Right? So currently correct me if I'm wrong, Jane, but currently what we're doing is they basically are in school, recommended that they mask, and then they can test out. They get a negative test at day 5. That's
correct. So, yeah. So it's required to mask until a negative test on day 5. And then as long as they're negative on day 5, then they symptom monitor for days 6 through 10. As long as they don't develop any new or different symptoms, they do not have to retest. So that's what I've been doing for anyone who has come to me and made me aware of close contacts, but I'm not tracing for them.
So it's more of a passive contact tracing. I just got confused with your example of a birthday party. No.
Oh, so like in my own household, like I knew that somebody recently was a close contact in my own household, so I made them mask.
Okay.
The current updated plan as proposed by Nurse Lindsay continues that practice.
Okay.
But it also is it's sort of to me it seems it makes sense, household contacts. It just seems a bit unfair when like I might know very well that there are 15 close contacts in a school and we're just ignoring it, and then somehow if someone makes me aware of a close contact somewhere else, that they then have to follow a protocol that others don't. So I understand. I'm just trying to make you aware that I don't want to dissuade people from being honest if it's they have to mask.
What if we did this, Jane? I understand the perceived kind of unfairness and inconsistency there. So what about what if there are no requirements for close contacts, but if you happen to find out someone's a close contact or someone says I'm a close contact, what do I do? You can give them these recommendations. Like, you probably should wear a mask and we can test you at day 5.
But it's not required?
It's not required.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, I mean, that does increase the risk of COVID spread in the school to people listening that are concerned about that, but it also creates a more relaxed approach. It's more of a normal communicative disease, and it also kind of eliminates this concern about, oh, someone found out I was a close contact, or and I'm not going to tell anyone I'm a close contact. It's kind of like some kids are treated like close contacts and some aren't, and that can create some problems, consternation and frustration.
It does, and I know now we have parents send their kids to school sick. We know what happens. Especially now with the 210 plan, parents send kids to school sick. I've heard kids say that they don't want to not miss school. They don't want to miss school because they're afraid they'll have to take their exams. So I think if we look at all of our policies, I think we're encouraging. We already encourage sick kids to come to school enough. I don't know where that leaves us, as far as trying to, I want to treat it more like a regular disease, and I think
close contacts by definition are not symptomatic though.
That's okay.
right? So close contacts have no symptoms. So, you know, obviously if someone says I'm a close contact, or what do I do? You know, if they become positive, they can stay home. You know, like our current policy says, stay home if you're sick, and they could get tested if they want.
I'll just say I personally kept my own child out of school sick just within the last 3 weeks. So,
Yeah,
you know, I feel like it's
I would hope so.
The accusations of
responsible.
accusing people of sending their kid to school knowing they're sick are pretty wrong. But
If you don't believe, you also believe that testing causes COVID. But if you don't believe
when did
that,
when did
you said that you stop the testing, COVID goes away. You said that earlier this evening.
Could you talk to me a little bit about, so under the mask policy section, it talks about community level. And
Yeah.
it's talking about Iowa County as a whole then, and early on, we had like tried to, or at least at different points along the way, we tried to separate ourselves from looking at the whole county level. But that changed, right? Or there was like a relaxation of those levels or something?
it was your
proposal made
Yes.
by building.
70 cases
I agree.
per building.
Yep,
Right.
I
So-
agree.
So to answer your question,
the
so
CDC guidelines is what I'm trying to
yes,
get to.
so the CDC, the mask guidance is no longer just based on cases.
Okay. What is it based on then?
So it's based on something called community burden, which is, I believe it's a combination of new cases, not total cases, hospitalizations, and hospital capacity.
Okay.
So it's more determining. We have a lot of very sick people in the community where we need to be worried in terms of protecting the burden to the hospital, and our burden to our most vulnerable. So, and you know, I haven't looked at the last map, but I mean, so it's like green, yellow, orange, you know, and I think like 95% of the counties in the United States are green, and the whole state of Wisconsin is green. So, and even our total cases have been 20 or less for the last 6 weeks. So, I think the chance of us having a high community level burden due to COVID is extremely low, especially with our high vaccination rate. So I think the chance of us, you know, having to require masks at any point is extremely low. But I think it's important to just to have something in place as a contingent so that we look like we're prepared for the worst, which we should be.
Is there any concern? I'm going to struggle to support this just because we're changing the mask policy we put in place 2 or 3 meetings ago. And one of the concerns I have is in Iowa County, we have one hospital, correct?
Yes.
We have a set number of beds, and one of the criteria on community level is percentage of staffed inpatient beds covered by COVID patients. And, you know, to me, in counties where there's multiple hospitals, which generally also means there's more people, I get the correlation, but I think we would then be leaving ourselves a little bit to the size of a hospital all of a sudden comes into further calculation.
That's who's here to care for us. I mean, that's the reality.
Right.
You know, if there are only 25 beds and they're all full, I understand what you're saying. The number makes the number smaller.
3 of them are full with COVID patients. 10%.
It's numbered that are COVID, right? So that triggers it.
Well, and it's one of 3 criteria.
It's 50 cases, over and under 50 cases. And then, in the last 7 days. Which then triggers the 2 options, and it's the higher of new cases, or new admissions, and the percentage of staffed inpatient beds available occupied by COVID patients.
I can tell you.
So if there's 25, 10% is 3.
I can see how that makes you a little nervous, but I can tell you that I don't think we had, even during our last peak in January, I don't think we had more than 2 or 3 COVID cases in the hospital at the same time. Well, and we didn't have a huge burden of disease and death this last round. January, February, when cases were really high. It was really harder on us fall and winter. And so, but I see what you're saying, but I think overall, I think that the thresholds for masking are much higher under this community burden
Well, I think
definition.
that's true
why
without
I
a
would have
doubt.
been comfortable with defaulting. I didn't say that just because I thought it would go a certain party line way. I legitimately think that repealing the plan and updating the CDC guidance in perpetuity, because this is going to continue to evolve,
No doubt.
was the right way to go. I didn't second the motion to repeal the COVID plan simply to get rid of the COVID plan and thereby it go away. And I'd like to say that I probably resent, particularly in the election, the assumptions that were made as far as my position is concerned. Because I personally think that the CDC guidance has evolved to a point that is probably more likely, common sense than what we're currently doing. So my second to the motion to repeal had absolutely nothing to do with making it entirely go away, and more to do with what is a common sense approach to a disease that is going to be around for the long haul.
Well, I mean, that certainly could be a motion on the table. It's to follow CDC guidance.
I just had to throw it out there because, truly my motivation isn't just, the belief that, but for the current COVID plan, we can just not deal with it. I just think there's a better way to deal with it, but.
If I may speak up, that a lot of the concern previously was about discriminating between vaccinated and unvaccinated, and the CDC guidance does do that. So they treat people differently based on as far as close contacts go.
But that would be right this moment. All I'm saying is that the CDC would continue to progress this to a level where it wouldn't be wasting the board's time to consider whether or not to update it, which obviously is no longer my problem. But I understand where you're coming from, Jane.
So Andy, I'm getting the vibe that you're not confident you want to support this, which, and I don't think put words in your mouth, but if we don't support this, how do we give Jane direction on what to do day in and day out? Because it doesn't sound like the CDC has really readily accessible guidelines on to say, okay, this kid just spent, the last 30 minutes having a coughing attack in the 3rd grade classroom. Do I test him? Do I send him home for 7 days? What do I do? If we don't do this, how do we give her that direction?
I would support this, to keep in the mask policy that we just put in place, which was school district based.
School district.
It does include close contacts though, which we're not keeping track of anymore.
What does?
The current mask matrix has language that says we're counting the percentage of positive cases and close contacts, but we are not tracking close contacts. So if that could be removed, that would be helpful.
Right, but what if you became aware of a close contact? Would you rather count that into the total or not? Because we may not be doing close contact, contact tracing, but we just had a conversation about if you became aware of a close contact, do we want to include that in the number?
I guess where does it state that simply in the mask matrix?
I emailed that to everybody 2 meetings ago, but I can look it up right now and read it verbatim here.
Should be good. Far left.
That just says
Percentage of students that are positive or quarantined.
Right there. So we're not counting quarantined in the count.
You mean asymptomatic quarantine? So currently whoever's in quarantine,
How are you defining quarantine? I mean, we're letting close contacts come to school, but the quarantine period was how we were previously counting those students.
I mean, if I need to state that we can remove the words or quarantine, that's helpful. I mean, we're, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think the best thing we can do coming out of this meeting is really have language that supports what Jane is currently doing and give her guidance on questions that she has about testing, contact tracing, not contact tracing, close contacts. And
I mean, I think we certainly need to update it to what we are currently practicing.
We could either vote on it as is, we could vote on it without contact, with contact tracing, I'm sorry, with close contact protocols being recommended and not required. We could vote on it with an updated mask policy or with our policy amended. Or we could simply say follow CDC guidance from here on out as it evolves. I think big picture, I think whatever we decide is not going to have a huge impact on students. With 2 months left in the school year, I don't think anything significant is going to change and impact the school in a major way, but I think any of those options are fairly reasonable. Just noting the CDC guidance currently brings back vaccinated versus unvaccinated and is a little more strict with close contacts.
Make a motion. We don't have a motion on the table, do we?
No.
I make a motion that we replace the current COVID mitigation plan with the plan as presented by Nurse Lindsay.
Second. Eisner and Janetka.
This is the one that was sent to us today.
Yeah.
I have no idea what it is.
We basically covered every part of it that basically just summarizes what she's currently doing as far as positive cases and updates the mask policy.
Would be based on community level for Iowa County.
I mean, if it makes you feel better, Andy, I mean, I think by the end of the year, I don't think the community level burden is going to change at all. And I think that my hope long-term is that we integrate something, as Sarah has suggested. I think we should integrate something into the student handbooks permanently as a policy. And then this will be gone this summer.
In addition to what we already approved?
Yeah, possibly.
Good luck, not my circuit.
Right?
I gave my handbook contribution.
Do you have any concern about those contact language that's in there? I mean, in terms of how we just Does that give her direction on how to treat non-classroom exposure she's aware of?
Yes, it does. It just, you know,
You're saying
it
follow the protocol.
I'm not opposed to it, no. And it does perpetuate the issue of kind of being discovered as a close contact person, not discovered, and you know, you know,
I would amend my motion if you think there's a way to word that differently. Or after
I'm
to
just
include
asking about.
suggest following these guidelines.
Outside of household, how do we prove distance at a party we were not at?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think Jane's been using her judgment the whole time as far as what's a close contact or not, and she's not tracing, and so I think it's a small number. But if we're uncomfortable with that, I think it could be amended to say that the close contact protocol can be recommended and not required.
I'm good with that. I was just wondering if there was any concern about that.
No, I mean, if kids are still in school. Kids aren't at home, so that's the thing I care about.
Jane, do you feel it gives you enough guidance?
Yes, and if you make that, are you discussing making the masking and for close contacts that I'm made aware of, are you saying that we should make that optional versus required?
We were discussing that, but that's not in the motion right now.
Okay.
That is the motion.
Either way, I have the guidance. So whatever you decide, yes, this document would give me clear guidance on how to go forward.
Anything else?
So as presented.
As presented, yeah.
Eisner. Yes. Metka.
Yes.
Sullivan.
No.
Seafood.
No.
Bush.
Yes.
Gunn.
Yes. Okay, it passes. Next is business services. Credit card statement of activity and bills payable. I'll take a motion to approve them separately or together.
Getting it yet, right?
Yeah.
I'm making a motion to approve them together.
I'll second.
Seaver, Janetka. Any discussion, questionable comments, anything?
Just that there was a lot of them. Is that because of the time of year? Okay. It seemed like a longer list than normal to scroll through.
Plus more things have opened up, so we are on more field trips, doing more things that we're able to do as part of the increase. It's a good problem.
One question. Number of college course payments, which is outstanding. Just checking, I know at one time, the policy we approved regarding that required a percentage of participation from the family. Are we following that policy?
Yes, we pay 75%. The student reimburses 25% of that cost. So what you're going to see on those things is only our payment out. You won't see the stuff coming.
So this is the 100% payment, but there's a 25% of this.
Do we have anything in place to support students who may find that 25% to be an obstacle in participating in those types of programs?
I'm going to say yes. If they approach me, I would say yes. We would find ways to do that. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We're very fortunate. A lot of kids do want to take those courses. And even this year, we've had some good results from that with some kids getting scholarships and stuff because of those courses.
I think it's just, I don't want that abused, obviously, but I think it's important for kids to know that so that, because they might be afraid to even ask to take the class.
I'll talk to Ms. Brunson and we'll make sure that that's, again, if a kid's got that concern, we'll make an approach that way.
Any other discussion? Angie?
Hebrew?
I forgot what we're. Bills pay bills.
Yes, sorry.
Bush,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Janetka,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes.
I'm deciding on what to have for dinner
I
tomorrow.
know, I'm trying out this. We're at the end, stretch. Okay, employee services, we're approving employee resignations, retirement. Mr. Wainwright?
We have three, two retirements and one resignation. Our district bookkeeper, Marcia Jelen, has submitted her letter of retirement and will be greatly missed. Our middle school assistant, Kelly Rickers, again, another long-time employee, middle school and athletic director assistant, has tendered her letter of retirement. And then Mr. Jeff David reached out to Mr. Renwick, who then forwarded that to me. Mr. David is looking to, his family will be relocating. He's looking at he's going back to school for some different certification. And all three employees have been wonderful for the district, will be missed. And I would recommend approval with regrets that they will be leaving us.
Now, Mitch, and that's also with posting of each position, is that correct?
The district bookkeeper position, we already have that position taken care of. The other two positions we would be posting, the middle school AD assistant position and the elementary music, we would be asking that we post those positions immediately.
But with approval, you'll be posting immediately.
Correct.
Middle school secretary and music elementary music.
Yes.
Just want to be clear. Okay, I'll take a motion to accept these retirements and resignations. Sorry, Johnny.
Make the motion.
Bruce Sullivan.
I have a question around two of the three and around the postings, because I think we need to start asking this every time. Is there any reallocation of duties that can happen that would allow us to not backfill? So we have, prior to this resignation or this retirement, we had 4 administrative assistants in the district. Is there a way to absorb those duties and reasonably go down to 3?
No.
Okay. We have 2 full-time music education staff at the high school level. We have a full-time band director and a full-time choir director. Is there any way that could offset all or part of an elementary school music position?
In elementary school, music is required. So the answer is no. There's no way to cover all of the sections of elementary classrooms with current staffing. That position needs to be replaced.
Could it cover a percentage, like could it be an 80% and we hire somebody at 80% and the people who are working at the middle school, high school level cover the 5th grade classes or 4th and 5th grade classes? I know that's outside of where we've been thinking. I just want us to explore all of our options in a fiscally responsible manner.
I understand that, and I would come back to my original answer that no, that's not possible.
Thank you.
Good questions.
You used to have middle school music.
And let's make it. We'll have one.
Any other questions, comments?
Just, two very long-term employees here retiring. I appreciate their efforts. And since he has started, the number of compliments and just walking through the school and seeing the computer set up with the keyboarding and the 25 guitars on the wall that have been integrated into the music class and the noisemakers at the front of the class, how different elementary music has become. I certainly hope we can find a suitable replacement for Mr. David and appreciate everything he has done to change that program.
Well said, on all fronts. Anyone else?
Yes. Bush,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Janetka,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, next regular board meeting is May 9th. Special board meeting for oath of office is April 25th.
And then you're also reviewing
Yeah.
additive support schedule and summer contracts. Is it 6:30? Do you wish to start it earlier?
On the 25th?
Yes.
Any reason to make it earlier?
You talked about the potential of closed session.
Not potential, we will have closed session.
I don't know that it'll be long.
I don't think it'll be a long closed session. So no, I would say keep it the same.
At 6:30. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Second. Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Wants to stay longer? Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Gary and Sarah, for your services.